So I've made lots of videos about Christians, but when it comes to the Muslim or Islamic religion, I've kind of left that blank. I know that there are a lot of Christians that might be finding this unfair and being like, oh, why is everyone attacking Jesus and no one's sort of attacking Muhammad or Buddha? And the reason why is, well, not that many people know about Buddha. I mean, he's mostly supposed to be just a symbol of peace, just a statue. And while the images of the fat Buddha, you don't need to insult that because he seems to insult himself. And when it comes to Muhammad, you can't insult him because you'll be putting your life in danger. You know, there's a lot of Muslims that believe that it's fine to attack someone if they insult Muhammad. So for this reason, it's best to stay away from insulting Islam. But since I believe that I'm God, and since I actually really want to die, I don't see why I shouldn't. I found this video online, and the guy seems fairly reasonable, but he does seem to have a bit of a past.
And so today we're going to hear your testimony of how you went from doing cultural jihad to now being a follower of Jesus Christ. And not to spoil any secrets, but can we start in the beginning? Where did you grow up? What was your upbringing like?
And a history, hence can relate to Muslims but also doesn't agree with them. So I feel like this video would be good to analyse. There was also a few things that I really want to talk about. I believe that I am God, but I also believe that I'm the God of nature. And I see Allah as being the God of nature, e.g. a God that has different rules to the rules that humans should have and live by. If you want to attack me for saying that, great. I have a death wish. Name a time and place and I'll meet you there. But if you're planning on just cutting off my ear and running off, I'm going to be very pissed off and I'm going to want to kill you. So anyway, that's nature for you. You never know what it's going to do.
What was your upbringing like?
Amen. So the difference between Christian and Muslim, if you are born as a Christian, you could not be a Christian until you are born again, not simply because you're born into a Christian family. In Islam, when you're born into a Muslim family, you're a Muslim. So therefore, if you leave Islam, Muhammad says, whoever leave Islam, kill him. You know, that's a mandate. So, and that's part of the Sharia law.
Surprisingly, I actually believe that that law has truth to it, but it should only apply to nature. If you see all the different animal species as being different families, a soul lies in all these families, but because reincarnation is the truth, it starts off as being small or in bodies that are less intelligent, and as the soul gets more intelligent, it can enter into more intelligent species. But the only way it can go from being a gazelle to a lion, or from a small monkey breed into an ape, or from a dog's body into a human's body, you know, it needs to die. Islam has only adopted things that are true for nature, and they've adopted it into their religion. So it shouldn't apply to the human species. But technically, I do believe that there are way too many humans on Earth right now. I cannot focus on the more intelligent souls, because the less intelligent souls are inverted, they're breeding like rabbits or rats, and they're leading people away from the truth. Because of this, I do see a need for the old to die and be reborn either back into the animal kingdom or back into the new form of species that is being formed on Earth right now. I believe the same thing happened with the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals died and the Homo sapiens controlled the world by killing the Neanderthals. But they didn't kill the monkeys because the monkeys were very different. But they did kill the things that were most similar to them. Why? Because they thought that they were the biggest threat, and they were, because they were a lot more intelligent than the monkeys. They were only going to steal their stuff, cause them problems, so the solution was to get rid of them. If the world is full of way too many people, and a lot of people are inverted, and I'm not just talking about Islam, I'm talking about Christianity, Satanism, the Jewish people who believe in the worldly Jew rather than a sort of spiritual Jew, who could be anyone including a Muslim person, and perhaps even atheism. You know, there's some people that are atheists not for the right reasons, but just because spiritually they hate God and they hate everything. I think people who are very sexist are also a good example of people who are inverted. But if God is a woman and she hates the things that these inverted people are worshipping, nature will take its course and do what it feels it has to survive and continue living a better life. Islam is an inversion of everything I am. Not everything God is, my higher self, but I have been reborn as human. So right now I am God in human form, and I don't believe in the laws of nature unless you're an animal. When it comes to humans, you have to have different laws. But my life has been pretty bad over the last few years that I am seeing humans as being more like animals over time. Up until 3 years ago, I would have always said, don't kill, it doesn't matter if you don't worship me, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in me, you know, this is how I felt. But after being ignored for 11 years, I'm fed up of this life that people have forced me to live, that I really don't care now. I'm just like, fuck it, do what you want. If I was to create a new race, a new species, I would definitely ban this rule. But right now I feel like there are two species on Earth, and I feel like there's way too many people here. Hence the only way I can focus all my attention on the more evolved species is to get rid of the old species. Which one's which? Well, that will all depend on whether or not you are able to believe that I am God and Christ, who is God in human form. If you can believe that, then you can consider yourself to be part of the new species. And I'm not going to judge you by what family you were born into. Why? Because I was Eve. All human DNA has come from me, hence you're all part of my family. If you've been trying to get rid of Jesus all your life, well, technically you've been doing me a favour because I'm Christ and I'm not Jesus. I just don't want 8 billion people in my family. So if the people who worship Jesus would rather go to heaven and be with God the Father, well, that's a good thing. It's the same thing that Muslims believe, which is that you need to be killed if you change religion. It's just far more hidden. If Jews want to believe that I am the suffering Messiah and Jesus is the Messiah in heaven, well, great. Go there. It only takes one shot. See, even the Jewish religion can be understood in a similar way. I think the only real difference is that Christians and Jews make choice part of the decision.
And so when we looked at all this, my life started in Beirut, Lebanon. I was born to a large Muslim family. I have 14 brothers and sisters, 3-room house.
Yeah, that is terrible. I was seeing actually some clips yesterday of these TikTok clips where you had a guy throw cloth on the floor and suddenly there was a child in front of him, and then the child threw a cloth, and then there was another child, and then another child, and another child, and then we were like, oh my gosh, and it got to 11 in the end. And of course, the mother came second to last. I mean, that in itself was pretty insulting, because surely it should go father, mother, and then kids, or the other way around, mother, father, and then kids, or mother and father together. But anyway, yeah, I think there are a lot of people, Christians too, who believe the more kids you have, the more blessed you are by God, and they don't actually feel the real spirit of God, which is that God is like, there's too many of you, like, she's having a fit over how many humans there are on the planet. She cannot manage them. She cannot kill souls, nor can she control people and stop them from having kids that they want to have. There are plenty of criminals all over the world, and she wants to make sure that these people never get into the human body ever again, but she cannot do that because there are so many humans that even the most terriblest people in the world have to come back as human. Why? Because that's a better option than going for a lion soul, because technically a lion soul is a born killer. And well, all these lion souls are going to come into the human body and they're going to turn into serial killers because all the other people just see them as being the same as them, and the problem is going to get worse. And well, people having 14 kids is only going to encourage the problem to get even more worse because there's way too many humans and a lot of them are going to be inverted. Spiritually, these humans are just not connected to God or to truth, or if they are, they're still connected to their ways as an animal, which is do what you want, kill what you want, the strongest wins. You know, these are all the rules of nature. There was good in them because millions of years ago, the lizards should have overtaken the rats and turned into dinosaurs, but God managed to change things and made the rats very good at breeding. And because they were so good at breeding, they were able to kill all the lizards before they evolved into dinosaurs, hence allowing monkeys to grow. So, you know, there was good in it. But yeah, now that humans are here, we need to forget what we used to learn. And when these souls who have spent many lives believing all this come into the human body, you know, they form religions based on what they believed when they were an animal. Inversion from me isn't always a bad thing, but when I refuse to have kids because I think there's way too many people here and I don't have the money for them, and yet people are inverted to how I feel and think that it's fine to have 14 kids even if they have less money than what I have, you know, I see it as stupidity, but they don't. They see it as a blessing because they're stupid. Darla wanted you to breed so that her bloodline can kill the Neanderthals, but this is not how I'm feeling because I'm living in a completely different world to the world she was living in.
We were separated into two groups of boys and girls. The girls were taught to be, you know, to be owned by men, and the boys were the owner of women.
Yeah, that's an inverted preaching. God is a female. God is supposed to own the world and own the people in the world, but the world and the people in it don't want God. They don't want the woman to own them. They want to own God. They want to form their own God in their own image, and that is where the root of that belief has come from. I guess it's also an inversion of what I believe. You know, I don't want to be owned by anyone. I don't want my parents to own me. I think they're stupid and can't make good decisions, but I'm independent and I own myself. So I think the source of that belief has come from an inversion of what I believe. Although technically I don't actually want to own people, not right now, because there's way too many of them, so I don't mind allowing this inversion. Plus the thought of Satan trying to control me sounds like a bit of a turn on. Because I can't look after 8 billion people, nor can you. But if you represents the leaders of the 8 billion, well, then it's something that you are able to do. But yeah, really what the world needs is less humans in it.
Allah, the God of Quran, he said, الرجال قوامون على النساء, meaning men are owners of the women. A woman must belong to a husband, to a father, to a brother, to an uncle, to her son. Somebody has to speak over her, because Muhammad says women are not smart enough. They are given half the understanding of men.
No, that's an inversion of the truth. See, women are designed to be more like me, and men are too stupid to understand that.
So therefore, he said, when they talk, just be nice to them because they don't understand.
So yes, when you talk to a man, that's a man, not woman, a man. Remember that they only think about dick, food, cars, money. Dick, food, cars, money. So they don't understand you. So don't try to complicate things by making them smarter, because we like them dumb. Oh, and if they think you're too stupid to do things like build buildings, just agree with them, because you don't want to be building buildings. You might hurt yourself, and it's a lot of work, so we don't want to do that.
Wow.
So my mother was teaching the girls to be subservient and teaching the boys to be leaders. And the exception was my mother was always telling me I'm very unique to all my brothers and my sisters. She said, you have a pure heart, and one day you will please Allah in such a way that the host of heaven will celebrate what you have done for Allah.
I'm pretty sure a lot of mothers would say this to their sons, and in every single case, except yours, they have been wrong, because I don't really make videos about Islam or the Muslim religion, because my life is more in danger if I do, so that's the reason why I don't. But I'm doing it now, because I don't care about my life. We're just stupid, and we belong to men, and why would I want to live here under those conditions? If you really were twice as smart as me, I'm sure you would understand that.
She said, Allah commanded us, my son, is when you kill Jews and Christians, your hand will light up before the throne of heaven, before the throne of Allah, and a host of heaven will celebrate what you did.
Okay, so your mother has no compassion towards other human beings. I kind of agree, but that's only because I hate all humans. And people who believe things like this are people who are the worst, hence deserve to die. But what she believes here, this is an inversion, because the spiritual Jew is actually just people who believe that I'm Christ, I'm God. And Christians are people who worship the Antichrist. But as soon as I'm being exposed as being Christ, the real one, a lot of Christians are going to change, and they're only going to change and know about me and believe in me because of Christianity. And therefore, I can't entirely hate Christianity, because it's the reason why people would know about me. I'm going to be relieved that things are changing if people are killing a lot of Christians, but I don't think celebration is really the correct word. So I guess there's truth to this. But technically, I think Muslims are far worse than both of them. Why? Because they preach stuff like this.
When you kill Jews and Christians, your hand will light up before the throne of heaven, before the throne of Allah, and a host of heaven will celebrate what you did.
My higher self might celebrate if she sees people being killed, because she can look into that person's past life and think, well, that person did this, that, and the other, hence they deserve to die. But me as a human, I'm not going to know what they've done. I'm not going to know their history or if they really deserve death. So therefore, I'm not going to be celebrating. So it's not an inversion of my higher self, but I feel like it's an inversion of how I will be feeling.
When I was a little boy, we used to write on the street of Beirut, on the walls, the people of Saturday first and the people of Sunday next. Meaning we're going to kill the Jews first, but we're going to kill the Christian next.
And you were you were a child when you were being taught these things?
Oh, yes. In America, they are watching SpongeBob SquarePants, and they are learning how to be silly, kids, and how to be funny. We are taught, my life, it was so unique, was a little bit more exceptional than other kids.
I feel I know what you were going to say there. We were taught to be men. In America, they were taught to be silly, and we were taught to be men. No, you were taught to be evil, fighters, heartless, stone cold. You weren't taught good things. To be taught how to find enjoyment and pleasure and satisfaction and entertainment, this is all a good thing. These are all good things. To be taught to be silly means that you can gain a sense of humor, build up personality, character, and learn to be a kind person. Now, if you're living in a world full of other kind people or other people that just want to be entertained by things, you can actually have a much better society because it's not all about trying to be better than others.
My mother was always telling me I'm very unique to all my brothers and my sisters. She said, you have a pure heart.
Or trying to be stronger or trying to be harder or tougher. You were being taught the wrong things. And the fact that you're actually referring to this as being...
My life, it was so unique, was a little bit more exceptional than other kids.
That almost implies that you still agree with the teachings that you were taught when you were a kid. That's not good. You might say that you've come to Christ, but you haven't. You've come to the Antichrist because you still haven't quite changed enough.
So when I started in my family, in Islam, if the husband doesn't make it to heaven, the wife does not make it to heaven either, because the wife failed to allow her husband to make it to heaven because she made his life difficult. So the blame is always on a woman.
I believe the root of that belief is because God is a woman, and if you as a human soul don't make it into the spiritual realms and have a chance of becoming a god on your own planet, or if you don't come back as a sprite species in your next life, it's God's fault for not helping you. When in reality, okay, there might be truth to it, but at the same time, she doesn't care because she can't make all of you gods, and if you all want to just blame her for your mistakes and your faults and your failure, then she doesn't care and she doesn't want you to get to the place that you wanted to get to.
But my mother's teaching was, she said, Allah said in the Quran, he said, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Those who died for the sake of Allah, they are not dead, but they are alive and prospering.
That's just to comfort people and encourage suicide.
She said, my son, the first drop of your blood, you become an intercessor for 70 of your immediate family. All of them will go to heaven without judgment because you offered your blood as sacrifice. And what is that? In Islam, you could not please Allah without jihad. In Christianity, you could not please God without faith.
Wow.
But jihad is the cornerstone of Islam. Everything is built on jihad.
That is actually just code for death. Everything is built on death and the belief that you can only get to heaven by killing yourself. Whereas Christianity is about faith, meaning that what happens to you is going to all depend on how you think. If you believe that heaven is a place in the sky and you can only get there through death, then that is what's going to happen to you. But if you believe that heaven is a place on earth and you can only get to it by trying to sense the real Christ and trying to come up with a plan that's going to help fix the population numbers, well, that's why faith is important. But who are you putting your faith into? Into a real Christ of the future or a false Christ of the past who came with lies?
Every Muslim have to participate in jihad, and there's many ways to jihad. So in the second drop of your blood, Allah will give you 72 virgin women. With every virgin woman will give you 72 virgin women. These are half women and half angels. You'll sleep with them that night, and the second day they will be all over, virgin.
That is such a self-centered, ridiculous belief. One, I don't understand why you would want to sleep with a virgin because they're just someone who doesn't have any experience, hence they're probably going to be very shit in bed. Two, they're going to be very clinging afterwards because they're going to want to stick to you and they're probably going to cause you harassment if you just walk away from them. Three, if 50% of the population is women and 50% is male, if you did take 72 virgins, that basically means you're depriving 71 guys of having a chance of being with a virgin, hence you're just going to wind up 72 people who are all going to want to attack you and cause war. I get the idea of 72 virgins because we can turn you back into an animal, kill you, bring you back to life, kill you, bring you back to life, and a lot of these lives are going to be virgins because there will be a time in their life where their body parts would not have had sex, so you can get your 72 virgins, but yeah, it's not something you should really seek after. How these people think of you is far more important, and if they think that the only reason why you had sex with them is because they hadn't had sex with anyone else, they're not going to be very impressed with you, and therefore you shouldn't have any reason to feel impressed with yourself. But I do believe that it's kind of inversion of how I feel. Like, I definitely do not want to have sex with 72 people. I'm not impressed with a guy who's a virgin, and I wouldn't be proud of doing that, but because Islam is inverted, you know, people would see that as being something you should be proud of, or something you should want or seek after. It's not the truth. But I get it, you men aren't programmed to think properly, you know, you're just not as intelligent as women, so we have to understand that you're just like this.
And Allah will give you a virtue of 100 horsepower, you know, to celebrate your carnality in heaven. These are the things we were taught in our childhood. At the age of 7, I used to climb to the rooftop of our building. Lebanon is cold, nation. We have the snow will come from the top of the mountain, and we have snow during the summer as well on the mountains. So I used to take my clothes off and draw my clothes naked and roll in the icy water, and I cried to Allah, Allah, Rabbi wa Mawlay, Allah, my Lord and my King, if lam takun li faman li, if you are not for me, who will be for me? I was wanting to have a relationship with Allah. I want to hear his voice. I want to offer him my heart, and I want him to know that I'm willing to do anything he wants. But God.
But do you really want this? I mean, do you really want to hear the voice of God if God turned out to be me? I don't think you would really want to watch this video that I've made of you, but I'm hoping you'll be reasonable about it and see it for what it is and respect that God can't talk to people unless she's in a physical form. I think she can talk to them if she's inspiring them to make films and songs, but there's going to be truth with lies mixed within. If you're looking to hear a physical voice, well, I can only do that in a physical form. And the only physical form I can come to earth in is female, because females are programmed to be more like me. If I came down as a male in a male's body, then males would probably be more linked to me. Hence they would be the more passive sex that's more interested in research than physical building. Gods can only be female, and if people are constantly wanting to put women down and say that they're not very intelligent, you know, I'm not going to be able to talk to people. I'm not going to want to talk to people. But yeah, there's billions of people in this world, and I bet a lot of people claim to want to speak to Allah, but really they're being fed lies about who Allah is and what her abilities are. They lie about Allah because they wish that Allah was the way that they want Allah to be. But that is like saying that I wished humans would be smarter. I wish Neanderthals weren't as violent as they were, but I don't get my wish. Because this is not reality. Reality is looking to see what exists and trying to shape it to make it better. Not just saying Neanderthals are stupid, they're not real, or Neanderthals are amazing and I love them all, even though the reality is they're just throwing rocks at each other, you know. This is the reality.
In Islam, Allah is not looking for a family. He's not looking for sons or daughters. He's looking for slaves. And the greatest slaves are the one they offer themselves as martyrs, the one they kill themselves by killing other people, like 9/11, like Hamas in Israel, and these people offering their life as a sacrifice. So my life took me right there in Beirut, Lebanon, and now I'm growing older, and I was not a brilliant child. I was not smart. Out of my 14 brothers and sisters, one day I came home and I had my school report, and the teacher said, this young man is not capable of understanding. He doesn't have the comprehension. He is not capable to be a student. You know, so she put an X on the paper, and my mom gave it to my dad. And my dad that day said to me, word for word, he said, I wish you were a girl out of getting rid of you by now. Because in Islam, if you're 6 years old, they can offer you in marriage.
That is really, really sick and sad to hear that a father wished his son was a female so that he could have legally sold her off to probably an adult partner. This is sick. This is paedophilia. This is sick. But when I think about all the killings that are happening in Gaza, it is making me think, I wonder how many people that are dying are people who think exactly the same way as his father used to think, that it's completely fine to sell off 6-year-olds. You shouldn't have kids if you can't look after them. You shouldn't have kids if you can't bring them up properly. The problem is so many people don't know what bringing up a child really entails or what is a proper way to bring up a child. This false teaching is causing people to be brought up incorrectly. Don't make your kids sit at home and watch SpongeBob to learn how to be silly. No, sell them off to adults so they get raped every day. Martyrism is a bad thing, but if you're being brought up to believe that it's fine to sell 6-year-olds off to people, then I'm glad martyrism is such a big thing. And yes, you're right. Killing yourself is going to please me if that's what you believe 6-year-old females should be put through. But luckily this guy had a dick, so he was okay. This story, though, does make me very concerned for his other siblings. You know, if he's had 14 brothers and sisters, how many of those sisters got sold off at a young age? The interesting thing is, would this guy even mention this or talk about this? Or does he himself think that women are less than men, hence he's not even going to talk about their experience, he's just going to talk about his experiences?
And, as a little girl. But he said, I'm accursed by you because you're a boy and I don't know what to do with you. And he said, if you have to live in this house, you have to work. So now I came to know for the first time in my life that not only my God has nothing to do with me, that I'm an orphan to God, but I'm an orphan to my family.
Wow.
And my greatest anger was to my mother because, she's the one who loved me and I loved her so much. I was willing to give my life for her and she did not defend me before my father. So I started working 6 days a week from sunrise to sunset for $2 a week. And I faced a lot of troubles until one day I was beaten up severely 3 different times. And I hid in a mosque and a group of Muslim imams came and protected me. And they became my protector. They were Sunni Muslim like me.
Mm-hmm.
That day I was beaten by Shia Muslims, by Kurds, and by Armenian Christians. So these people took me under their arm, and then they started training me for civilization jihad, for culture jihad. And it angers me because what part of our teaching that the Christian are so blessed financially, and they have so much finances, but the Christian don't care about the Muslims. They don't want to share their faith with us, nor their finances, nor their if God was generous to them.
It's interesting how you say that and in a way seem like it's still the truth, or you still think it's the truth. It is the truth, but I feel like you should also see things from the other perspective, which is that a lot of Muslims don't want to switch religion or change their view on how they see things. There's a lot of Muslims that have immigrated to England. They're still wearing their hijabs and they're still making mosques and speaking their own language. There's a lot of people in England who refuse to learn the language because they want to stick with their beliefs from their past heritage. It's like their bloodline is far more important than changing. So you can't just insult Christians for doing this, because Muslims do this just in the same way.
So we knew that their religion was false. So our hate was growing greater and greater and greater toward the Christians. And so with that, my life took me now, with these people are being taught in the mosque how to shoot a handgun, how to do self-defense, and how to also how to really deceive the culture from within, how to change the culture and by what method.
Sounds more like they're just preaching hate. I mean, these people saved you because you were being beaten up by Muslims from the other side, and yet you're emphasizing their hatred on Christians and on a long list of other people. This just sounds like hate and wanting to shape everything and make everything their way.
A man of great power came and he spoke at our mosque. His name was Abu Yusuf. He was the right hand of Yasser Arafat, and he said Islam was nothing before the sword. He said the only things that will make Islam great is the machine guns, the sword. And so the whole group joined, and I was the youngest one. I was 7 years old when I shot my first AK-47 in assault camp.
Okay, I'm starting to change my mind. I do not agree on forced marriage or turning children into some person's sex slave, but I think it'd be better to be a sex slave than to be a kid on the street with machine guns who goes around threatening people because a group of people have convinced that person that Christians and a long list of other people are all bad people. Everyone's bad except for that group. Yeah, I think you should have been sold off for marriage.
This is how my story started. And then not just that, but I used to love the steel, the smell of the steel. My dad was a blacksmith.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to love the smell of steel on his body when he comes home, because of what he is. And I wanted to be like him.
Mm-hmm.
But when my dad had nothing to do with me, and I shot that AK-47, the steel in that AK-47 became a god to me that can protect me,
Wow.
can be stronger than my father to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was changing my identity. And now I was going to being trained. I shot my first 50 caliber. I was sent to Israel by the Syrian and the Palestinian to do my first mission at 7 years old, carrying weapon caches to rendezvous with the shepherds and to give them explosive TNT blocks and handgun Makarov, Russian Makarov, and other guns and what so have you,
Mm-hmm.
and AK ammo, and they wrap it on the belly of the sheep and they took it to Israel, and the Fidaiyin killed themselves by killing Jewish people. So when I came back home, I was hailed as hero, and now I went from nobody to recruiting. I became a child recruiting children. And the best ability that I ever had to recruit children, I knew the orphan children, how they look like, and how they speak, and how they live. I can spot those orphan children
Mm-hmm.
anywhere in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I can look at them and say, "Ah, here's an orphan child."
Mm-hmm.
So these are ticking bomb because they have
Was
no.
your dad aware that you were doing these things? Was he proud of you for doing these things, or he kind of rejected you and didn't want to do anything with you after that?
My dad and I separated just from that moment on. He choose to play with the other brothers and sisters and spend time with them, but for some reason I had no relationship with him, and that's what drove me away further and further. And I really want to give my life away. I
Wow.
wanted to die
Wow.
because I felt like um, I have I add nothing to this world but just misery.
Mm-hmm.
Because what dad said to me, I'm cursed by you and you are not smart enough. I believed all this.
Well, sometimes you have to accept the truth, and it's really strange how you're trying to pin your problems on him. Now, okay, I know you were 7 or you're very, very young, so maybe he did cause you to go into this direction, but you have to also take some acknowledgement that you probably put yourself in this position. Okay, the root problem was probably him having 14 kids, not being able to put any time and attention onto the kids, hence being overrun with too many kids, too many problems, not being able to guide them in the right direction, hence causing these rifts, probably not having the money to fund things. So in a way it's not your fault, but in a way it is, because did all your other brothers and sisters go in the same direction that you did? And it's interesting how at the beginning of this talk, you talked about how your mother thought that you would be a blessing to God.
My mother was always telling me I'm very unique to all my brothers and my sisters. She said, "You have a pure heart. And one day you will please Allah in such a way that the host of heaven will celebrate what you have done for Allah."
Even though at the age of 7 you were learning how to basically join the army and become a martyr for God. From the sound of things, it sounds like she actually wanted you to die, but just told you something that would encourage you to do it in hopes that you would die. I know that's a wrong thing, but then again, if you've just given birth to 14 different babies, I'm sure some of them are twins, you'd probably be in a pretty bad mood too. That's what happens if you allow the men to rule the family. The men are going to be like, "No, you will have that baby. No, you will have that baby. I'd make the decisions. I control everything. God does not allow abortions." And they'll be saying this because they don't give a shit that their wife is about to go through 9 months of emotional problems and an extremely painful birth. And they don't give a shit if you do it 14 times in a row because they don't give a shit about the wife. That's how I see it. A martyr for Allah. Or is that a sacrifice to the male who wants to rule over women? I feel like you're telling the story in a way that makes me feel like you don't understand how wrong what you were doing really was. But from another perspective, I feel like it's not wrong, because if there's lots and lots of people who think and act in the same way that you're acting, then I can see why there's such a need for martyrism, because these people shouldn't be human. They need to go back into being an animal. Animals don't know how to use guns. A rabbit can give birth 3 times a year, every year for the rest of its life, and it's actually going to be a benefit to the animals around. Why? Because things like foxes are going to enjoy the meal, hence they're better off being an animal. Okay, they are stupider, but it's for the best because they're not causing problems for other people. They might be causing problems for other animals, but that's just nature. A problem for one animal is a meal for another animal.
Our fathers and our mothers shape our future,
Mm-hmm.
and So I was learning all this, and now death became a god to me, and martyrism became the way to live. It became the way and the truth and life.
hmm One of the statements in the quotation in Surah is, Judgment Day will not come until Muslims fight the Jews, and the Muslims will kill the Jews.
I don't want to support any side when it comes to Muslims and Jews, but I do support the spiritual Jew, because the spiritual Jew is not the worldly Jew. These are two different things. And yeah, like the Muslims' religion, I believe that is an inversion of the truth. The spiritual Jew, which are not the worldly Jew, they will kill the Muslim. But if the Muslim want to change and become a spiritual Jew, you can, although I'm going to call them sprites. I don't want to call them Jews because I don't like this name. It links to the past and it links to confusion, because I don't want to confuse people by thinking that the Jews, as in the worldly Jew, is my special people. They're not. Only people who believe that I am Jerusalem, Israel, Babylon, there's a lot of names. Only these people are the spiritual Jew, the sprites.
There's this whole concept that the Jews will hide behind the stones and the trees, and the trees will cry out, say, hey, there's a Jew here to come and kill him. What did that mean to you when you were growing up and being trained? And what does that mean to America now?
Well, this is very important because we are definitely toward the end of time of our Christianity and life. And but when you look at all this, you have to look at the concept of it. He said the days of Islam will not come about unless or until the Muslim arise. What's the arise is jihad.
Death.
So when the Muslims step into jihad, like what Hamas did in Israel, then what happened is the trees and the rock will cry out, there's a Jewish person hide behind me, come and slay him, Muslim. So they start speaking to us. So Allah's favor will be upon us to slaughter the Jewish people and the Christian people. And so what it means, it's the Great Commission for us. Allah said in the Quran, he said, whatever your right hand possesses, it is yours. And he said, meaning whatever it is your inheritance. So therefore, when you go into war, whatever you possess in a war, just like ISIS, it become yours to inherit. Even the things, you can enslave people, you can take their money, you can take their women, you can take their children, you can take their land, you can take their government. Everything is yours to obtain.
That would be a message to the sprites, not to the Muslims. But I guess in ways the Muslims can have it if they want to use it against other Muslims. Sorry. You get what you give in this world. And the reason why I would say it to the sprites and not the Muslims is because I believe that the sprites do actually have my spirit inside of them, hence they have the ability to feel compassion and empathy for others, whilst also trying to see the bigger picture, whilst also understanding that not everyone is going to be of help to the timeline or to the planet or to society. The sprites are basically more evolved people who think in a much more intelligent way, hence they're not just going to go in there and steal everyone's stuff. Plus there's a lot of poverty in these countries, so I don't think they would want to steal a lot of the stuff there.
This is an Islamic doctorate. This is part of the Islamic last days. At the age of 8, I recruited my best friend Muhammad, and his mother was Fatima, was in our neighborhood, and I promised her I'll bring him back alive because it was easy. But the Jewish Israeli people knew what we were doing, and that day when we came, all I can hear is the flies are buzzing all over the place. And when I came over the hill, it was the shepherd and the sheep were slaughtered. That's why I called my first book The Blood of Lamb, my autobiography. Because when we came down and we started stepping down, they started hitting us with everything they have. Their mortars, their 50 cal, their snipers, they were hitting us with everything. And Muhammad took shrapnel that day, my best friend, and it severed his esophagus, and he fell down to the ground, and I was crying, Mama, this is the childhood that I was open to, that I was watching. And when you see all this, what happened, it just changed your identity and possess your life with the present darkness and law of murdering spirit. You want to kill and be killed. And so
So
this
now,
is this is what happened to me. we have a saying in the Middle East, especially in the Muslim culture, the enemy of my enemy is my enemy, so we united in what's so-called ism. The ism doctrine is Islamism, socialism, communism, liberalism, secularism. All these we will unite with together until we win the war. Then we can turn against them and we can take them out. And what's happening in our street in America and abroad all over the world, many people who are marching on the street, they don't know what the Muslim are using it. There's a saying for it that we used to say, we use the other culture as useful idiots. That's what we call them. So what is useful idiot? We use them to do what we want them to do. At the end of the day, they get bruised, they get hit, and they fulfilled our purpose. And so we use the culture for our what we need.
I don't want to listen to the story any longer. It just seems to be a story of hate and despisal of everyone. Hate your enemy's enemy. How does that even make sense? Use the Americans as idiots when really you're the idiot, who's likely even worse than them because you're not understanding things. You know what? I just hope the smart people can use your idiocy by convincing you that you are doing the smart thing when really you're doing the dumb thing. It's like a chess game. You want your opponent to make all the stupid moves, but you want them to see them as intelligent moves, hence you want to encourage them to make the moves that are only going to get their pieces killed. I don't want to listen to this because I don't really see what I'm getting at it. You just seem like a very normal, average person, and then to learn your story, it's just making me almost fear the idea of talking to people, because I could be talking to people who seem like they've evolved and changed and have immigrated into, new culture and society, but then to listen to you talk about your past and sort of relive it in a way, but relive it in a way that makes you think that what you were doing back then was the truth. I know that that's how you would have felt back then, but to still be able to talk about it in this way, I feel like you haven't quite moved on. That's how I feel, and it's making me wonder, who am I going to be talking to in the future? Have they gone through similar paths to what you've gone through?
During the Lebanese civil war, you saw the first hand of savagery that was happening there. Could you speak a little bit about into that, and how did it affect you?
Oh, oh. I think you are possessed all of a sudden, because these things, you either lose your brain, your mind, or you either lose your inner man and you have no direction.
See? So someone asks you, how does seeing war and people being killed affect you? And you be like, well, you either go mad or you lose your inner man and lose direction. You need your inner man, because your inner man is a good thing. You need direction, you need your inner man, so you just need to man up. That's almost like what you're saying. It's like you're saying, I've just seen lots of war and I have two options, to go mad or to just man up. Even now you're talking about it as if all you need to do is be a bigger man. This is not how you should be talking about war if you are really, able to understand that it's wrong. If I had just been through a war and someone was asking me 30 years later, because this is talking about something that happened when you were 15, if someone was asking me this question 50 years later, I would be talking about coming home, getting out of it, not being in war, looking back, my experiences on how I've reflected on it. I wouldn't be talking about, well, I just need to gain my inner man, that's all I needed.
And I know it was a lost war, because when the Christians were losing to us Muslim at that time, the Israeli came and helped them defeat us. So we know the best friend to the Christian were the Jews. So we know that we have to get rid of the Jews, and then we'll get rid of the Christians. So, but my anger for the Christian was so powerful, because even when I came to the United States of America, I found out that the American church is complacent and it's complicit. They are complacent. They don't want to do what need to be done. They're happy with the blessings that God gave them, and that's okay. I don't have to be active in anything else. And the second one, they're complicit, because they are not agreeing or disagreeing. They're agreeing with the culture and making everything move forward against a future generation of our nation specifically.
So you come to America, you learn about the church, and this church just wants to move on, just wants to think about the future, just wants to come complacent and just more tolerant to different views, tries to forget about the past. but you think this is wrong. You think this is just them doing things against the future generation of the nation. So you are obviously not progressive in any way. You're constantly just wanting to go back to how things were in the past and do things in the past, even though your past was so fucking messed up. Alright, I give up on you. Although I am curious to find out how many of your sisters were sold into marriage, because that's not going to have a negative impact on the future generations. No, what they're doing in the progressive American churches, that is going to have a negative effect on the future generations. But it's fine. Just man up and you'll be in the right direction.